Welcome to The Driven Entrepreneur, where we sit down with visionaries, trailblazers, and entrepreneurs and discover why and how they do what they do. We'll get the backstory, plus plenty of life and business lessons along the way. Here's your host, Matt Brauning.
Hey, this episode is brought to you by my very own NLP practitioner course. I've been teaching neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, for nearly 15 years. It is the most powerful tool for communication on the planet, and it can be yours today. For a very limited time, I'm giving away my entire NLP course workbook for free. Go to nlpwithmatt.com. All the patterns, all the tools, and the techniques of NLP in the complete course workbook, the same one that we use to teach our live certification classes, yours free. nlpwithmatt.com. Get it today. Let's get back to the show. What's up, my friends? Welcome to The Driven Entrepreneur. It's Matt Brauning, and we are ready to rock. Hope you had a great week so far. You're out there driving, entrepreneuring. That's a new word. And because you're looking for more success, you're creating more success, that's why you come to this show. I know that's why you're here, because you're going into your weekend. You're thinking, man, how can I take my business to the next level? How can I get into a business for the first time? How can I get this whole entrepreneur puzzle figured out? Well, a massive part of that is what that online presence looks like. And it's not just social media and whatnot, but specifically I'm talking about, do you have good video of yourself up? Do you have good photos of yourself up? Video is something that, it's come huge, of course, in the last decade or so. And, podcasts and radios are jumping back in the game, which is great. But video is holding strong. YouTube is the number one search engine behind Google, and they're owned by the same company anyway. You got to be out there with good, compelling video content. So I scoured the earth to find my guest this week. His name is Travis Chambers. He was a Forbes 30 under 30 and the founder of Chamber.media. It's a 30-person growth and video agency. He does social videos, and his agency has tripled revenue of a $4 million DTC companies. He's driven $300 million in tracked revenue and garnered more than 400 million views across Facebook and Google channels for his clients. He's the keynote speaker at Google Growth Summit, VidCon, and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He's been in Inc., he's been an entrepreneur, Adweek, Huffington Post, and everywhere you see articles, you'll find Travis Chambers. The most interesting thing I want to get into today is he led the content strategy and distribution for YouTube's #1 ad of the decade, the Kobe versus Messi. It had 140 million views. And it took the company Old Navy from 2 to 8 million Facebook likes, just like that, because of great video. So without any further ado, let's get into the world of video entrepreneurship with Travis Chambers. Are you there, my friend?
Yeah, I'm here and ready to rock.
Yeah, you are. You're in the sound dungeon. You told me we're seeing a little video of that place. I could see some guitars in the background. You got your mic set up.
Sound dungeon. How we like it.
Dude, I love this, man. So let's get into, before we get to the video, work and all of that. You obviously, we've been kind of rapping and talking for the last few minutes as we're getting set up and ready. You seem like a pretty cool guy. Great personality. Have you always been in this kind of PR media, like people business? Did you know you were always going to be in a people style business? Or is that something that you fell into sort of later into life? What was your career trajectory, if there was one, earlier on?
Yeah, I was always a people person since I got beat up in 5th grade by a 4th grader. I always thought I was pretty tough until then. And then I realized you gotta be charismatic and make friends, being an undersized kid. I'm just, that was, if we're going real far back, but
let's do it.
But yeah, in college, I was going to go kind of climb the ladder, the corporate ladder. That's what my dad did at Monsanto. He built the Roundup brand, which is a pretty wild story.
Wow, that is a pretty wild story and very controversial at this point in life too.
Yeah, he's got Parkinson's and he's had 2 types of cancer from it.
Oh, wow.
Pretty crazy. He worked his way up from like a regional salesman showing farmers how to use it all the way up to a senior director and he was like the national sales director. And yeah, it's pretty crazy story. But I was in a lot of those like conference calls and stuff that he was on, and a lot of his sales calls. So that's where I got a lot of my education. And then I was going to go kind of the corporate route, and I was in the journalism school at some pretty random agricultural school, Utah State. Not really known for advertising. And I just realized journalism was dead. This was like 2009. And that's when I really turned on to digital marketing and really focused in on that. And I'm really glad I did, because at that time, you probably remember, at that time, only 2% of all advertising media spend in the United States was digital. And now, as of last year, it's over 50%. And then just last month, consumption like television and just media in general just went over 50% on the internet. So there's more people consuming content now on the internet than on satellite. So
man, I wish we could tell every business owner in 1994 this interweb thing is going to be bigger than you think. So we're more than 50% of ads, more than 50% of the general consumption, and I think and that's across the board, right? That takes in small rural towns, that takes in different industries that are like agricultural, that are not necessarily digitized, so to speak, and then it also takes into account Netflix and content like that. So for us, I think the average company, especially you listen to the show right now, could easily be doing, would you say, like upwards 80% plus, maybe even of their advertising and of their client acquisition could be for some companies. How big could their media percentage be that's online?
Yeah, I could just tell you based on the companies we've
let's
worked
do that.
with. I could tell you this pretty in a pretty quantitative way. So we've worked with probably about 100 different brands. And I'd say the size where they usually start doing TV is around that 30 to 50 million mark. Most of them
30 to 50 million in gross revenue?
In annual revenue. Most of them can get to 30, 50 million in revenue with no traditional ad spend whatsoever. So we're talking Amazon, search, affiliates, social ads, online retailers, Walmart.com, Wayfair. That's the trajectory I've seen, is companies can get anywhere from 10 to 50 million before they have to do any traditional media really at all. And then there's some that can get bigger than that, but then they usually start doing TV and they start doing larger, more complex, I guess you could say, more like multifaceted type of media spends.
Yeah, that makes sense. So when you're first kind of trying to get into this whole thing, did you know you were gonna grow up and be an entrepreneur? Was that after watching your dad and whatnot, and you said, okay, corporate ladder? Did you kind of fall into this because this seems fun, or did you make a choice to say, I don't want to do this corporate ladder thing. I want to have more freedom, or I want to have more income potential? What was the driving force for you when you decided to start your first business?
I never, the thought, the romance of entrepreneurship, like never even entered my brain. Like it was never even in my lexicon. I was, when I was 19, my whole world was, if I can get to six figures by age 30, and have a stable, secure job that allows me to have a family, then I will be very successful, because that's pretty much what my dad did. But then what I wasn't calculating is, I think he got to 100 grand in his maybe mid 30s, early 30s, but that was in the 90s. So the cost of the dollar, right, has changed quite a bit. But what happened is I was climbing that ladder and I was changing jobs like every year or two, pretty stereotypical millennial, just climbing, using and abusing pretty much every company I worked at to advance myself. And I was a social media director at 20th Century Fox, and I only lasted there for about 3 months. I just couldn't hack it. I couldn't keep up with the pace and the speed. We had our first child, and I honestly just could not compete with people who didn't have kids. Like, it was just impossible. I couldn't keep up with the hours and the intensity of that. and 20th Century Fox is like notorious for being like that. You know, I had friends at other studios that it wasn't so crazy, but it really put a bad taste in my mouth. It really turned me off because when I was 11, I saw a movie trailer on TV, and I told my parents, I want to be the guy who advertises for movies when I grow up.
What made you say that at 11 years old? I think most kids want to be in the movies or maybe run the camera or something, but you're like, I want to advertise the movie.
Well, I think I saw my dad worked about 70 hours a week. He'd fly out at like 5 a.m. on Monday morning over to Atlanta from Portland every week. And then he'd get back Friday night. So I didn't really see him a lot. He was a great dad, but I didn't see him a lot. So I was like, and he's not a super heavy, like creative guy. He's definitely more of a sales relationship guy. I was super creative, really like music and all that. So I was like, I need to find something because I think I'm going to be a salesman, but I need to find something that's like more creative than just being a salesman. And then by the time I got in college, I realized that digital marketing was like the new way to be a salesman, right? And in a low pressure way where you didn't have to fly around the whole country because I didn't want to do what he did. So that was kind of the route there, but yeah, that was it. So I had a daughter, I got laid off. My dad got Parkinson's and cancer and divorced all in that 2-year period. And after watching him and everything he went through, right. And everything that he did, he had this feeling of like, not only did I really like build something that I own, but he grew helped grow $1 billion brand, multi-billion dollar brand. And, eventually it's going to end up killing him. And they didn't really, you know what I mean? He just was like, what did I do with my life? Type thing.
That's crazy. And like on one level, you're looking at it going, oh, that's successful and you're making all this money or whatever. But from the son's perspective, dad's gone all the time and now his health is gone and now the family's gone. And I can see it's like, in hindsight being 2020, it might be easier to say, hey, maybe I should go a different route. But our kids are our hindsight oftentimes, and you get to be that for your father. So you move into something different. I think that's really interesting. Now, what was the very first, how should I say that, like platform that you said, I want to try to get someone's attention. I want to do something online that's advertising or something like that. Did you get into doing some YouTube videos? Did you do some random viral videos with friends, or was it straight to business? What was kind of your very first endeavor into trying to get someone to watch or capture eyeballs, so to speak?
Yeah. So it's so funny because I didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur at all. But when I was in college, when I look back, I was doing entrepreneurial stuff all the time. I started MMA fights, 2,000 people showed up, and I would give people a free ticket if they invited 200 people on Facebook to the event.
What? So you're a fight promoter too?
I was a fight promoter. Yeah. I started this fight promotion.
That's awesome.
It was fully legal. We ran it at an ice hockey rink. We had, the Utah Boxing Commission was there. We had EMTs there.
Wow.
And yeah. 2,000 people showed up. We turned like 1,000 people away because we couldn't fit them in the venue. It was crazy. And it was like, I was putting lawn signs out. I was flyering cars at football games. It was like total guerrilla marketing stuff.
Just boots to pavement, just old school, getting butts in seats.
Yeah. And then it was about a year later, or maybe 2 years. Yeah. About a year later, my wife and I just recorded a video in the car that was kind of a joke. And everyone thought it was real. And it went super viral. And it was a selfie video. I said, hey, if you're going 80 miles an hour, how long does it take you to go 80 miles? And she did this dumb blonde thing for like 40 minutes. But we get on Tosh.0, Good Morning America, Real TV. It was crazy. And I was just at like some, I was doing marketing for data loggers in this small town in Utah. Like it was not in a sexy job by any means. And Kraft Mac and Cheese reached out to license our video. And it just happened to be the ad agency I had dreamed of working at for years. And that got me an interview and I ended up getting a job there. And a year later, Turkish Airlines walks in and says, hey, we want to make the most viral ad of all time. And the chief digital officer, Ivan Menderes Perez, I owe pretty much my whole career to him because he looked at me. He's like, this is your shot, man. you're going to do this project. You're not going to include any other departments. We're not going to include any other people. And we're going to go full assassin mode on this thing. And it's going to make a lot of people angry. And it's going to be a wild ride. And sure enough, we did it. We got 650 influencers integrated. We had 20 interns in different languages reaching out to 8,000 editors.
Well, what does that mean, having 650,000 influencers integrated? Does that mean they're going to help to share this advertisement? Or
yeah, they did what we call a shout out. So they did a shout out to the video when it launched, and they just drove tons of like organic traffic to it. And that just made the algorithm go nuts. And we did a really sophisticated ad spend with it. We did Reddit seeding strategies. I mean, we did all sorts we paid Facebook groups to post about it. It just went nuts. It went nuts. It went so huge that no one in that organization, or really any organization at the time, fully really understood what had just happened.
In the ad organization or in Turkish Airlines?
Either of them. Like neither of them like fully understood what had just happened.
So how do you quantify going viral? I think it's a term we use so much. So what happened with the Turkish Airlines video? So it's, first off, is it viral? I'm sure it's viral worthy, however you might say that. Was it funny? Was it interesting? It was something that made people actually want to see it. I'm assuming that's a prerequisite.
Yeah, I mean, you have Kobe Bryant and Messi, right? You've got a lot of kindling there. However, neither Kobe or Messi had ever been in an ad that had gotten over 8 million views on YouTube. And you got to understand, I had a $3 million budget to pull this off. And at the time, there was a $3 million spend on a Windows Phone ad that was pretty cool that only had 8 million views.
So you could have spent the entire budget, not on production, not on anything, just to buy the views. And
yeah.
So when you went into it with 3 million, was part of that for production for the video? Was part of that paying Kobe, Messi?
3 million was just the media plan. So
wow.
We spent a good 800,000 on influencers. We spent $1.5 million on ad spend. We spent 60,000 on SEO and seeding. And we spent a few $100,000 on press outreach. Yeah, it was like a very, very like orchestrated, I spent literally 4 or 5 months just putting this plan together, and it worked. I was pretty shocked how well it worked out, and, got over 3 million shares. It won, Cannes Lion Gold Prix. And then YouTube held a vote, and it was voted the number one ad of the decade. It was kind of like got that moniker, which was
number one ad of the decade. Now, you had mentioned 8 million views for the phone. Now, this ad got, you said 140 million views. Is that accurate?
Yeah. I think it was over 150. And sadly, they just took it down because I think the term licensing likeness term for those guys wore out. So they just took it down. But yeah, it was over 150 million.
Can you put that into perspective? Like if I have a company and I want to get an ad out there, maybe just to, it's not going to be YouTube. Maybe I'm going to do a Super Bowl ad, right? Or something where I want to get in front of a lot of eyeballs. How much would it cost to get around that many views? Or how many views could you expect to get for $3 million in ad spend if you're using maybe national television or something to that effect?
Yeah. So with $3 million, if you're getting cheap international views, you get 30 million views with that, if that's all ad spend. However, if you're more focused on brand lift metrics and higher quality traffic in first world countries, then you're going to be more like 5 to 8 cents per view. And we're talking YouTube, by the way, which is a little more expensive. Then you're going to be, a fifth of that. You're going to be whatever that is, 7-8 million views, 10 million views. So
okay.
And it really depends on what your cost per view is.
So $10-12 million to try to get to that level of views for anything that's incredible. So, I mean, we're looking at that's at least 4 or 5 times the return just from using the strategies you used. So
exactly.
From that, Okay. So, okay, good. I think I got it right then. So
And-
from that point,
Yeah.
you decide, you're like, okay, well, are you like the kind of the big chief around town now, or is everyone patting you on the back going, oh my gosh, who was this wonder kid? Or was it, hey, that was yesterday, today's Monday, what's the next ad? What was the kind of the positive or negative fallout after the success of the video?
So here's what's so weird. So I didn't really get any accolades or attention for it. So like that ad won a Grand Prix gold Grand Prix awards at Cannes. It's pretty much like that's the golden standard of advertising. You can't really win anything bigger than that. My name wasn't anywhere on that because I was on the distribution. I was on the media plan.
You didn't create the ad.
Yeah. And what's crazy is I developed the concept like in that first meeting with 6 other creative partnerships. I was like, guys, we really should make a concept around the selfie. It's Oxford Dictionary's word of the year. It's relevant and we could own this in culture. And this is like the best foundation that we could have. And one of the creative partnerships developed that concept and pitched it, and that concept won. But yeah, there were account managers that were on maybe 1 or 2 calls for like 20 minutes that got on the Grand Prix award. But, to be honest, I didn't care. And, I didn't get a ton of accolades because no one really knew. There's not like there was any type of platform really for anyone to know that I was behind that. So all of the mileage and momentum I got out of that came out of me promoting myself, so networking events. I mean, I don't get any speaking gigs, nothing like that. I had to basically take that and completely promote myself on LinkedIn and in other places. However, it was enough because I started Chamber Media that next year and we did $800,000 in our first year, and we've doubled in revenue every year since that. That was 6 years ago.
My gosh, that's incredible. So $800K your first year doing that. How much of it was reputation and referral versus, I don't know, call it advertising or going after people? What would you say for that $800K or that first year was because people knew how good you were versus you convinced them how good you were?
I convinced everyone how good I was.
If you don't hustle you, no one's going to hustle you.
The phone wasn't like ringing off the hook. It was hitting the pavement and getting out there and going to events and posting on LinkedIn. And but a lot of our first projects came from, second, third person referrals. So like our first client, I think 3 months in, was from somebody at CPB's uncle at the agency I was at. So, there was enough of like a very small groundswell in our niche. And I was able to get enough reach on LinkedIn. Even with just 10, 20 likes a post on LinkedIn, I was reaching at least a few hundred people. And that kind of spread. We got a little Yahoo behind the scenes thing with Yahoo. But it was about 6 months in, 7 months in, when an old college buddy had become marketing director, Icon Fitness, for the Nordic Track brand. And he called me and I pitched a $120,000 production. The concept was to put 50 people on 50 treadmills and make the world's largest treadmill dance, kind of ripping off the OK Go thing. And they bought it. And all of a sudden I was producing $120,000 production. I had no experience to do.
And this is essentially a commercial you're producing. When you say production, you mean you're doing a video and you're the producer that's organizing everything on the shoot?
Yeah, it about killed me because I literally had no idea what I was doing. And I mean, I was assembling these treadmills myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're the producer, but you're there with the wrench. I love it.
It was crazy, but we got 13 influencers involved in that actual content. And the video only got about 4 million views. We only had like 50, 60,000 in the launch spend. However, it got over 50 press features. It got in a lot of really big features. And then America's Got Talent called, and they brought our act onto the show on primetime. We got 7 million primetime viewers for free.
Whoa.
Yeah.
So you mean when you say your act, so you brought on like treadmills onto America's Got Talent and like did the treadmill dance from the viral video essentially?
Yeah. And we
it's epic.
The judges moved us on, and then they're like, wait a second, all these treadmills have Nordic Track logos on them. You can't do that. Our advertisers won't allow that. And so we're like, all right, see ya. Thanks for the free 7 million primetime viewers.
How did Nordic Track feel about that?
They were pretty stoked.
Better be.
Yeah. And we did more stuff with them. We did another project about a year later that did really well. But those two projects in that year span, they did over 7 million in revenue. At least that we could track, probably more than that. But that was like, that was a turning point for us, because around that time was when virality was starting to really take a hit, because Facebook and YouTube were wanting to really monetize their platforms. They want to make people buy ads.
Right. And that's when, so everyone listening, that's when you have a Facebook profile, a Facebook page, and all of a sudden on your Facebook page, you used to get you have 1 million followers or 100,000 followers. You used to get a bunch of engagement, and all of a sudden it drops because these platforms are saying, no, we're not going to push organic reach. We're not going to push viral reach. We want you to pay to promote your posts. And if you do, then we're going to start putting it out there more and more. So the whole thing changes. How did that affect your business? And did that actually help things because you were doing a combination of strategies, or was that a big hit to you?
So it was a hit. However, I've always had an ability to prepare, and read the pulse. I mean, when I was on Old Navy, right, 2 to 8 million page likes, I watched the engagement rate go from 20% to below 1%. So I knew that it was happening. So because of that, on the Nordic Track project, we put some calls to actions in there, very light, very gentle, which was a no-no, right? If you're trying to make something viral, you don't want there to be any sales or pitch in there at the time. So we wove that in, and that was the only reason it drove revenue. And because it drove revenue, well, now we had a direct response case study. And we did a few more viral projects after that. And the virality, of course, was more and more difficult. And it's very hard sell. It's very hard to pitch a brand, we're going to make you a viral ad. So we let go of that branch. And there was about a 3 or 4 month period where we thought we were going to be screwed, because we completely changed our pitch to direct response. It's time to make something that sells, that's a heavy pitch. And
so now you do a YouTube video, there's a pitch, there's an ad, there's a call to action, and it's all about what's the click-through rate? Are people buying? Forget about views. It's all about dollars. Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah. And at this time, the only people doing direct response were very like spammy infomercial people. So
Sure.
you got your Ty Lopez kind of people.
Shout out to Ty Lopez, but true.
What's up, Ty? But king of spam for sure. And yeah, you had your 6-pack abs, you had, and everything was about being an influencer, right? And we had, I'd say a good half of our revenue that first year was from doing influencer deals. But we noticed that brands were taking that in-house and tech was taking that over. So we stopped doing that. We pivoted fully into, okay, we're going to spend $1 and we're going to make $3. And this is direct response game. And I'm so glad we did that, because everyone who stayed in that viral space got completely destroyed. They all went under. They got completely destroyed.
When you had so much too, where like, and even in the last few years, you've seen this whole influencer game change drastically, where now, it went for, hey, I have 100,000 followers on Twitter, or they have 1.3 million followers on Instagram. But then some of the companies weren't looking at the engagement and the likes, comments, shares. Are these really people following? Because it used to be, I don't know what year that was, Travis, but I remember, when someone had 1 million followers on some social media platform, you go, oh my gosh, who is this person?
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, my grandma's cat has 1 million followers.
Yeah.
And, and it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But it was about that engagement thing change. So would you say it sounds like a lot of people kind of got caught with the pants down, so to speak, with
that's
paying influencers, and they weren't getting engagement because of it?
Yeah. Yeah. That's a perfect way to put it. And I, you know how it is, Matt. You always look at your career and you look at what you've done, and you never feel like you did as much as you could have, and you compare yourself to others,
I don't do that. And never at all. I actually every day. Go on.
You're just a saint.
It's so, what a trap. But yes.
But I've looked at, to your point, I've seen so many people go huge in about an 8-month, 12-month period and then tank, because they build their businesses on the algorithms. They build their businesses on the audiences, but they don't have real legitimate businesses. they don't have multiple products, multiple services, multiple offerings. They're depending on ad revenue, or they're monetizing a temporary loophole in an algorithm.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And so we really made a legitimate, sustainable business, and we passed on a lot of big opportunities to make quick cash. And man, I am so glad we did that, because like you said, a lot of those influencers, a lot of them are toast now that weren't real entrepreneurs. And I've heard some of them explain it as if it's like being on $100 million yacht that has a hole in it.
Wow. Yeah.
So like you're on a yacht, you've gotten used to being on this yacht, but it's slowly sinking, and
it's going away at some point. So as we kind of get into the last chapter so far in our conversation, I know I got to let you go pretty soon. Before I do, what are we looking at today? So if I'm, most of the people listening right now, you guys are entrepreneurs, a lot of solopreneurs, startups, kind of early phase people. What should we be looking at for video, for ad, like with everything you've seen so far and all the successes on both sides? What should the startup, or kind of, I don't know, call it maybe the under $500,000 revenue entrepreneur be looking at? How should they be leveraging video properly to get the best, whether it's bang for the buck or the best traction? Should we still be trying to get, good organic views out in videos? What should we do?
Yeah, so I've been preaching this for about 3 years. You've got to pay to play. Facebook and YouTube have shareholders. They've already dominated the scene. So now they're monetizing as aggressively as possible. If you do not pay the people in charge, you will get crushed. And so you cannot build a company based on an organic audience alone. You can't just rank on Google. You can't just rank on Amazon and think that that's going to last forever, because it won't. I have friends that have gotten first ranking on Amazon, and they had no type of paid acquisition, nothing. And they lost their ranking because some other competitor outspent them driving traffic, and they lost everything. I have friends who've gone bankrupt from doing that. So, and we've proven this. I've got some good examples. Transparent Labs, we started working with 2.5 years ago. He got a lot of good organic rankings. And he was doing 2 million. He did 2 million the year before he worked out with us through affiliates and an organic ranking. He hired us because he was intuitive enough to know that he needed a replicable, sustainable paid acquisition strategy. 6 months in, we took him to $1 million a month. And he was putting 100 to 150,000 a month profit in his pocket. And we did that for 2.5 years straight. He just got acquired actually by one of our other clients. And 6 months in, there was a Google update. He lost those rankings and he lost a lot of those affiliates. He would have basically lost his company overnight, but instead he kept charging at $1 million a month and, put a couple of million in his pocket, and then got bought out for 10 million after 2 years.
That's incredible. And just understanding like the risk of, we talk in entrepreneurship a lot about how having a job can be a bigger risk than starting a business, because you only have one client. And if they change direction and you get fired, that's that. Whereas when you're an entrepreneur, you can have many, many clients, many, many sources of paychecks. You're saying the same thing essentially here, where if you have a big social media following or you have a great organic reach, like if you rely on that, it's just as you're at the whim of Google decides to change. And on this radio show and podcast, we just had, iTunes. Apple just made a big change. They split iTunes for music, Apple Music now, and then Apple Podcasts for all the podcasts. Massive platform change. And all of a sudden, listeners find things differently. Like the whole thing is shifted. And if all of my business was built on one thing, just reaching people through the show, that will be a massive setback. So you're bringing in advertising everywhere you go. And when you said, I just want to clarify, when you said how many, 1 million a month and putting 152 in his pocket, does that mean you're spending about 800K a month in ads and the business is taking 200, or was that after ads and cost of goods and expenses? He was netting that.
He was netting that. So we were getting about a 5-to-1 return on ad spend.
Okay. So for about $1 million in revenue driving, you were spending like 200K in ads. And then after its cost of goods sold and after expenses, still having a 20% profit margin ish.
Yes, exactly.
Man, that's incredible.
Yeah, that's crazy, right? It's rare, right? I'd say it's top 30th percentile of accounts we've worked on, and it's interesting too, because the return on ad spend itself was maybe a 2.5 to 1. But once we compared overall spend to overall revenue, because you can't track everything, right? And you've got Google search, you got direct search, you got a lot of these things. Then all of a sudden it was like at a 3 or 4 to 1. Then when we factored in the email blast to customers,
sure,
and we realized that the reorder rate had gone from 10% up to 30%, then we started to factor in the lifetime value. And all of a sudden we realized, holy cow, for every dollar we spend, we get $5 back. And the first 2 months were ROI negative, and we were about a $50,000 a month spend those first 2 months. It was ROI negative, and it was that third month where it really started to turn. And it was that fourth month where the reorders started to kick in. And that's when it started to really get supercharged. But what's so interesting is he kind of stopped investing in creative, because it's like, he has no employees. He's making anywhere from 80,000 to 180, 200,000 a month profit, depending on the month. So it's really hard to reinvest in creative and keep making it bigger and bigger. So he kind of stopped investing in creative, and the new owners now are investing in new creative, and we're taking it to the next level. But what's so interesting is we have another client called Mr. Cool. And we took them, they're very similar story. They were doing 10 million a year off of Google Shopping and some organic stuff. And we took them to 36 million and 36 million a year. What's so interesting is they've continued to invest in creative. We actually made a line chart comparing the two. And where Transparent Labs stopped investing in new creative and Mr. Cool continued, that's where they diverge. So Transparent Labs kind of like plateaus at that $1 million a month. And that's where Mr. Cool jumped up to 3-4 million a month. And that trajectory is just, it just continues to go up and up and up. And what's really crazy is Mr. Cool gets only about a 2 to 1 return on ad spend. But by the time we factor sales lifts from all the online retail channels and Amazon and the website, it's a 20 to 1 ROI. So for every dollar we spend on Mr. Cool, we get $20 back. And,
incredible.
It's really crazy to see. And I think we're going to take them to 70, 80 million this year. And they're going to be kind of starting to get into that like Dollar Shave Club, Harry's, those really big D2C companies. I think we're going to get them into that trajectory here pretty soon.
Travis, this is awesome. I'm also, as you're saying that, I'm looking over at your website. It's chamber.media. You want to see, I don't find a lot of people that are combining both things. Like you have hit after hit after hit of videos that are just interesting to watch. You got a guy it looks like an ape hiding in an ice cave. You got to see this, man. So chamber.media, not .com, but chamber.media. You'll see case study after case study, but the most interesting videos. And then you're also managing the ad spend and watching the funnels from real dollars and cents and real conversions from the videos. So this is the kind of thing, if you want, those purple mattress style commercials, you want, the same thing that 1-800-Flowers uses, poopery. I saw that on there. That's awesome. So, we got some poopery in the house for the bathroom.
Yeah.
And everyone, these videos and these companies, they use some really funky, cool stuff that gets you hooked and makes you want to watch and you stay. And then ultimately it causes a conversion, and you're doing everything from the beginning to the end. So Travis, tell them, do a little plug. Where can they find out more about you? And if we want to see if we're the right size or the right kind of company for you, what do we need to find out?
Yeah. Just like you said, www.chamber.media is a great place to check out our work. And then I'm really active on LinkedIn. And so I post there a few times a week with all sorts of cool stuff there. Also could, connect on Twitter, Travis_Chambers. But yeah, we have a contact form on our website, and I get all of those contacts. So if you choose to reach out that way, I'll I'll be able to see the info.
There you go. Schedule a discovery call, and Travis will see it personally. This is epic. Well, Mr. Chambers, thank you for your time and your creativity and just everything you're doing here. We appreciate it, and thanks for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Hey, thank you, Matt.
All right, guys, that's the show for this week, man. Travis Chambers, what a legend. Remember, check out chambers.media, and then you can follow Travis on all his social media. Look for Travis Chambers, LinkedIn. I think it's Travis Allen, Allen Chambers. But go into LinkedIn and search Travis Chambers Media. You'll see all the cool stuff they do. Thanks for listening. Get out there this weekend. You know, it's Friday right now as you're listening to this, or whatever day you're getting it if it's on demand. But get out there, enjoy yourself, but really start thinking about how can I get more video content into what I'm doing? And maybe you're at the place where it is time to scale. Maybe you are at the place where it's time to get some real, spend $1, make $3, or spend $1, make $5. You might not think you're the person, or you're at the place where you're ready to start doing some advertising, but you might also shock yourself. So find out more with Travis Chambers. And then make sure you follow me at Matt Brauning. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. All those places where you can get cool things and see me and my life. And I always put up stuff about our guests, about my kid, about the dog. If you want to see pictures of my wiener dog being really silly, go onto my Instagram at Matt Brauning. And there you go. Get out this weekend and crush it. I'll see you next week with another awesome driven entrepreneur. Bye-bye.